You know, if it wasn't for Europe creating three Bibles within a 51-year span from 1560 to 1611, people will have no idea about Jesus being here in the first century if it wasn't for them also faking discoveries such as the Dead Scrolls in 1946. If not, they wrote about fictitious Jewish historians and placed them in the first century. Yet still, people of that time and the real historians, no one wrote about Jesus, for he's supposed to be here at the end of times during the generations of Jacob and Joseph. In other words, father and son. And why would it be called the generations of Jacob and Joseph if it wasn't for if it doesn't mean God in Christ? And we all know that Jesus is the son of Joseph, which makes him the grandson of Israel. So ask yourself, is Jesus Israel? And if he is, then how could he be his own grandfather? So anyway, let's read what the Most High has to say. Fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass, and wither as the green herb. Trust in the Lord. And we all know that a king becomes Lord. And we also know that Joseph becomes Lord too, while Jesus becomes a judge. So wisdom of the Most High, high places and his throne. So the Creator of all things gave me a commandment, and he that made me caused my tabernacle to rest, and said, let thy dwelling be in Jacob, and thy inheritance in Israel. In other words, follow God himself. For we know that Israel is God. For you are standing in the house of Jehovah in the courtyards of the house of our God. Praise Jah, for Jehovah is good. Make melodies to his name, for it is pleasant. For Jah has chosen even Jacob for himself, Israel for his special property. In other words, Israel is God himself. So the creator of all things said, dwelling be in Jacob. And we all know his foundation is in the holy Mount Zion. His foundation is in the holy mountains. Jehovah is more in love with the gates of Zion than all the tabernacles of Jacob. In other words, he loves Ethiopia more than all places. That's why the oldest language in the world is Ge'ez, and it's a written thousands of years before Hebrew and Arabic. So glorious things are spoken about you, O city of the true God, Selah. In other words, Selah is one of God's many names. You created me from the beginning, before the world. Holy tabernacle, so I was established in Zion. And we all know that Zion is Ethiopia, the beloved city, and in Jerusalem. So in other words, Zion and Jerusalem are two different places. And I took root in an honorable people, said, and the portion of the Lord. They that eat me shall be hungry, and they that drink me shall yet be thirsty. All these things are the book of the covenant of the Most High God, even the law which Moses commanded for inheritance unto the congregations of Jacob. In other words, Moses and Jacob are together at the same time. Why? Because Moses is just another name for Joseph. So let's read. He that liveth forever created all things in general. He governeth the world with the palm of his hand. He's the king of all. His majesty. And Haile Selassie has literally crowned the king of all kings. He's called the Lord of lords. So the number of a man's days are at the most are 100 years, as a drop of water onto the sea, and a gravel stone in comparison of the sand. So are 1,000 years to the days of eternity. Therefore is God patient with them, and poureth forth his mercy upon them. He saw and perceived their end to be evil. Therefore he multiplied his compassion. So who is he? He's Abraham, he's Isaac, and he's Jacob. So Abraham is father of many peoples. He renewed the same promise because of Abraham with Isaac. And Jacob, God acknowledged him as the firstborn. Why? Because that's God himself. So the Trinity is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, God alone. So God acknowledged him as the firstborn. So how could Jacob be the firstborn if he comes after Abraham and Isaac? Real simple, for he's God alone. And God alone fathers himself. So out of Jacob, you will get Moses. So from him, in reference to Jacob, was to spring the man who won the favor of all. Moses. In other words, Moses is one of Jacob's sons. So Moses is Joseph. So let's watch what's going on.
You have sold the people of Judah and Jerusalem to the Greeks so they could take them far from their homeland. But I will bring them back from all the places where you sold them, and I will pay you back for everything you have done.
Notice he said the Greeks. So they got
You
this
have
guy.
sold the people of Judah and Jerusalem to the Greeks.
So who are the Greeks? The Greeks have many nations, as mentioned in Maccabees. After Alexander the Macedonian, first over Greece, made many wars, he fell sick. He called his servants and parted his kingdom among them. So which is his kingdom? And his servants ruled everyone in his place. They all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. And there came out of them a wicked root. So in Rome is one of the kingdom of Greeks. So in those days came out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen. So you got some Israelites following the heathen. So whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem. So Jerusalem became a heathen place. And Egypt. And they were told not to read the book of the Testament. So you notice it's not called the book of the Testaments, for it was them who created the Old and New Testament format. It was just the book of the Testament. It was just one book. It was not supposed to be in an Old and New Testament format. And that's what they created in the 15th century, because they wanted to put the future in the past. So they want you to believe that Exodus happens at the end. As we all can see, is the Greeks. So who followed the Greeks? This guy. Let's watch him.
I mean, this is part of the reason. Only really been recently that we have the levels of literacy that we have today. I mean, this is part of the reason why you have these long spans of time between when people live and then the ancient biographies that start to pop up about them. Is because
he's trying to explain why no one wrote about Jesus. He wasn't here. He wasn't here. Stop lying. Look, let's read. Ecclesiasticus. It tells you exactly when Jesus is supposed to be here, and that's why they didn't put it in their versions. It's called the Book of Sirach in their version. But they left out this part. So this Jesus was the son of Sirach, the grandchild to Jesus, who lived in the latter times, after the people had been led away captive and called home again, and almost after all the prophets. Now his grandfather Jesus, as he himself witnesseth, was a man of great diligence and wisdom. In other words, the first Jesus that everyone's saying died thousands of years ago will become a grandchild in the times of Revelation. So the first Jesus died, or it would appear that he died. And then Sirach's son will give his book, leaving this book almost perfected. Sirach's son, receiving it after him, left it to his own son Jesus. So you got Jesus, then Sirach, then his own son Jesus. Because we know that the real Jesus has at least two kids, two boys. So this Jesus did imitate Solomon and was no less famous for wisdom and learning, both indeed a man of great learning, and so reputed also. My grandfather Jesus, when he had much given himself to the reading of the law and the prophets and the other books of our fathers. In other words, Jesus is supposed to be here at the end of times, as mentioned in the book of Esdras. So the first books of Esdras will tell you, Esdras the priest in the first day of the 10th month, he brought to an end on the first day of the first month. In other words, he was gathering all the men and trying to tell them stay away from strange wives. So a strange wife is someone that doesn't believe that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is God. So of the sons of Jesus, the son of Josedek, they gave their hands and put away their wives in reconciliation for their errors. So as you could clearly see, Jesus has sons. Sons, not one son, he has sons. So we just read about Sirach. He also have a son named Ezer. So during the time of Jesus, you will find Esdras, the son of Heli, the son of Sarias, the son of Azarias. In other words, Joseph himself, because Joseph is the son of Sariah, Joseph is the son of Azariah. You will also find the son of Aaron. Why? Because Aaron is Levi, and Moses is Aaron's brother, and Joseph is Levi's brother. Therefore, Moses is Joseph. Joseph is Moses, just like Aaron is Levi. Same people, just they got more than one name. And when are they supposed to be together? When the angel of the Lord brought his people out of bondage, and he gave them his commandment. And when does that happen? I, Esdras, received the charge of the Lord. Esdras is just another name for Moses, just another name for Joseph, just another name for Solomon. So I, Esdras, received the charge of the Lord upon the Mount Horeb that I should go unto Israel. But when I came unto them, they set me at naught and despised the commandment of the Lord. Notice it doesn't say the 10 commandments of the Lord. It said I despised the commandment of the Lord. In other words, Esdras is going to get word from God. So thou shalt come in the end of the world, the shepherd. So be ready for the reward of the kingdom, for the everlasting light shall shine upon you forevermore. In other words, forevermore. It couldn't happen 3,000 years ago, and then they enslave us again for another 430 years. No, they created an Old and New Testament format, having you believe that Exodus happened thousands of years ago, when in fact it's supposed to happen in approximately 24 more years.
My purpose is to try and correct some of the misinformation and misunderstanding surrounding this particular.
In other words, he's a mole. He's an agent. He's here to destroy and change the past. So he's just continuing his Greek heathen ways of the past.
I mean, it's irrelevant what the majority of Christians believe. Yeah.
In other words, he doesn't care what a Christian thinks. So he wants you to believe that a God could be a male and a female and all this weird stuff, like with his gender fluid voice.
Well, I was taught it when I was a child, when I went to seminary, when I went to Bible college. I was taught it in graduate. Taught it when I was a child, when I went to seminary, when I went to Bible college. I was taught it in. Well, I was taught it when I was a child, when I went to seminary.
God's not a man. They've never been taught this.
Well, I was taught it when I was a child, when I went to seminary.
So he was taught that God is not a man. And he's there professing himself to be a biblical scholar. What a
When I
clown.
went to Bible college, I was taught it in graduate school. I would say a few things to that. I would say, in one sense, it's irrelevant what the majority of Christians believe, because what historical biblical Christianity articulates is what they should believe. You know, there are Christians who run around saying all sorts of things that are not in conformity.
You literally say you don't know if God is a man. You don't even know what God's name is.
Translators of our understanding linguistically of certain words has expanded, and the King James translators are very open about this, that, you know, there are hard words, there are words that we just don't have enough context. This is true even today. Selah. Now, we have a good estimation that it has something to do with music, that it probably means a pause. For whatever reason, in God's divine providence, it has not been essential that we understand what that word means.
This proves he's a mole, because it clearly states, if you're a biblical scholar, how could you not understand what this means? Glorious things are being spoken about you, O city of the true God, Selah. In other words, God is Selah, and is mentioned many times in Psalms. And if you just read it slowly, you could clearly know that it means God, like it means no other thing. So what does it say? The professor of religious studies of the University of North Carolina. Jesus was never mentioned in any Roman sources, and there is no archaeological evidence that Jesus ever existed. Even Christian sources are problematic. The gospel came long after Jesus' death and written by people who never saw him. And if you listen to Jesus himself, you'll notice that he's supposed to be here after Spain founded, because he's supposed to be here during the times of Joseph, the son of Azariah and Zachariah. So what did Jesus say? Many times, like many times. He said he's the Son of God 41 times, for we are all sons and daughters of the Most High. He says he's the Son of Man, therefore he got a man that's his father. And the man that's his father's name is David. So he says he's the son of David 16 times. So Jesus called God Father over 165 times. So who's Jesus' dad? So this concludes the prayers of David. In other words, David is Solomon, Father Jah, not man.